Hi folks, it's John Nizman from lastchanceautorestore.com, and today I'd like to share with you a tip. We get lots of people that ask questions about how do you unseize or unfreeze an engine. And it's a very good question. There are a couple of different theories out there on how to unseize a motor that's been sitting for a long time. The reason why we're staying in front of this particular vehicle, which looks quite odd or different, is we're building this. It was a special project for a movie company. So this particular motor is it's out of a 1967 Dodge pickup truck, and it's the original slant 6 motor. So this particular engine has been sitting for approximately 30 years in a field, and the first thing that we did is we removed the spark plug wires and the spark plugs. We got a quarter line hose with a small funnel on the end, and what we did is we stick the hose down where the spark plug would go, and we poured 4 to 6 ounces of diesel fuel down each of the cylinders, and we let it soak. And then what we also did is down the carburetor, we did the same thing. We poured 4 to 6 ounces of diesel fuel down the carburetor. Now we did that, and then we'd wait a day and we would do it again. So with this project, or with this motor, we did it for 5 days in a row. So every day we came out and we put 4 to 6 ounces of diesel fuel down each cylinder and down the carburetor. And then after the 5 or 6 days, 5 days I believe it was, we took a ratchet with a socket on the front of the crank, and we put a long bar on it, and we just gently pulled on the long bar, and the engine broke loose or freed up, and it turned freely. So we turned it a couple of revolutions by hand. So now we knew the engine was no longer frozen or seized. So then we drained the fluid. There was some old oil in there, but most of it was the diesel fuel that we poured in. So we drained all of that, and we put fresh oil in and a new oil filter. And then we turned it over by hand again to make sure everything was lubricated. So then the next thing that we did, once we knew the engine was freed up, is we bought, from our local Napa store, we bought new spark plug wires, new spark plugs, new distributor cap points, condenser, and rotor. And then we also replaced the fuel pump because it was all gummed up and like varnish. So we replaced the fuel pump. I think you can pick it up there in the video. So we replaced the fuel pump and the tune-up parts here. And then the carburetor, we removed the carburetor, we cleaned it all, blew it out, and put it all back together. So once we did that, then we started it up, and the motor ran fine, and it just needed basically a tune-up and to set the timing. So another theory that people have, we always have used diesel fuel to pour in the cylinders. We've also heard of people having success using Coca-Cola, or a cola brand, if you will. And they pour soda down each cylinder and they let it soak, same thing, and there's people that have had great success with that. What we've done here at lastchanceautorestore.com is we've had really good success using normal diesel fuel, pouring it down each cylinder. So once we had the tune-up parts and the carburetor cleaned and we had the engine running, obviously the next thing we did is we removed the valve cover because the valve cover gasket had a little bit of seepage and was leaking. So we replaced the valve cover gasket, we put a new gasket on, we degreased this and put it back on. The alternator wasn't charging properly, so we put a new alternator on. And then as you come around the front of the engine, because the cooling system had quite a bit of rust and so on, we were able to flush the cooling system. We replaced the radiator. You can see there's a little bit of coolant here that we spilt when we topped it up this morning. In the front we have a new water pump because there's quite a bit of corrosion that was built up inside. So we replaced the water pump inside here, the thermostat housing. We replaced the thermostat along with the gasket, and then we have new upper and lower hoses. So now our cooling has been flushed and cleaned, and then we have fresh gasoline, and then we have the engine unstuck, if you will, and it runs great. So then the next thing we did is we replaced the starter with a new premium rebuilt starter from Napa. So now it's more reliable in terms of starting. So what I'll do now is I'll just turn the key so you can hear the engine run. So keep in mind, this is a 1967 slant 6 engine, and it was sitting in a field for 30 years, and it was frozen or seized, and after freeing it up, this is what the engine sounds like. So I'll just start it up now. So these slant sixes were never known to be a powerhouse in terms of power, but for the application that we're using this for this movie company, it's going to be ideal. It's going to carry 3 passengers with the new cooling system basically redone, and the engine with the fresh tune-up. You can hear how smooth the engine runs. And part of the cosmetics, you can see we just use flexible tubing for the exhaust. That would have a normal exhaust pipe coming down with a flange, but it was rotted away, and for part of the production of this movie, they wanted to have a different looking exhaust system, which we'll share with you in an upcoming video on the complete build of this truck that's for the movie. But basically what we did is just a straight pipe. So it runs nice and smooth. We've done this silly for cosmetics too, just having a couple of air cleaners, which once again is just for a visual effect. But you can hear and see how smooth the engine's running. And a lot of people would have a really hard time believing that this engine sat for 30 years. So with diesel fuel to free up the engine, and then buying some tune-up parts, cleaning everything and flushing it, you can get these results. Now we're not saying you'll get these results all the time, but we were lucky enough to have it work with this particular vehicle. So thanks for watching. I encourage you to view our website. It's lastchanceautorestore.com, and thank you for watching.